This is Cassian Creed. Twice, 5 years apart, an Oklahoma court ordered Jeremiah Duffey to surrender his firearms. On the night of July 23, 2026, police say he used one to kill his wife, Sara Gilson, and then himself. What follows is a record-based account of 5 years of court filings, of the 44 days between a child's police report and Sara Gilson's death, and of why the criminal file most people went looking for was never there.
Where the record goes quiet, we'll say so.
Section 1. 5 years, 3 orders.
Okay, so to really understand the complete picture here, we have to start by winding the clock back 5 years, all the way to August of 2021. We're going to trace the timeline of court filings involving Sara Gilson, a 43-year-old hairstylist and mother in Owasso, Oklahoma, and her estranged husband, Jeremiah Duffey. On August 20, 2021, Sara filed her first petition for a protective order. Judge Julie Doss granted an emergency order right then. The conditions on it were absolutely clear. Duffey was to stay 100 yards away, he had to leave the residence, and crucially, he was ordered to surrender all of his firearms to law enforcement. Then, just a little over a month later, in late September, Sara filed a second petition. This one alleged domestic violence, stalking, and harassment, which resulted in a second emergency order being granted.
Now, I want you to notice how these early filings concluded. That first order, it actually ended in early September when she didn't appear at the hearing, and the second one was dismissed in mid-December at her own request. Let me be very, very clear here. That is one of the absolute most common patterns we see in domestic violence cases. Withdrawal and non-appearance are widely documented features of coercive relationships, so it is absolutely not evidence that her allegations were untrue, nor was it her fault in any way, shape, or form. It's simply what the docket shows.
Let's jump forward to June 9, 2026. On that specific day, a 15-year-old and a parent walked right into the Owasso Police headquarters. They reported inappropriate sexual contact during a rented basketball event. Now, it is incredibly important to state right up front, Jeremiah Duffey is dead and was never charged over this 2026 allegation. He was accused of inappropriately touching a 15-year-old, but no charges were ever filed.
The very next day, June 10th, a judge granted 2 separate emergency protective orders. One was filed by the minor's mother on behalf of the 15-year-old, and the other was an emergency order for Sara. And just like that order back in 2021, Judge Janae Clawforty ordered Duffey to stay away, to vacate the residence, and to surrender his firearms. So the really crucial takeaway here is this: a court ordered him to surrender his firearms twice.
Section 2. The jurisdiction gap.
So you might be wondering, what is the jurisdiction gap? Well, it's a legal mechanic that explains exactly why the criminal record many people went searching for later on appeared entirely empty. You see, where a crime happens and who the accused person is completely decides which government has the power to prosecute. The Owasso Police determined that the alleged conduct happened in what the law calls Indian country and that Duffey was actually a member of the Osage Nation. Under a strict federal rule called the Major Crimes Act, that specific combination automatically ends local authority over the molestation investigation. It literally moves the entire case over to federal prosecutors.
As a direct result of that rule, Owasso Police sent the case to the U.S. Attorney's Office for review. Their local authority ended right there. And again, we need to remember Jeremiah Duffey is dead and was never charged over the 2026 allegation. He cannot answer these allegations, and he never will.
This means anyone searching the Oklahoma state court system for a criminal case against him in June or July of 2026 would have found nothing at all on the criminal docket. But listen, that absence was not evidence that nothing was happening. It was simply evidence that people were looking in the wrong system, mostly because federal pre-charge records are simply not public. The protective orders, however, those were an entirely separate matter. They stayed in Oklahoma State Court, they were completely findable the entire time, and they remained active.
Section 3. The 44 days.
Now we're going to turn our attention to the strictly documented interval of 44 days. This is the period between that June 9th police report and Sara Gilson's death on July 23rd. Right in the middle of that interval, on June 23rd, she actually showed up in court in person. Sara stood right there before Judge Janae Clawforty to officially ask that the protective order continue. The court agreed, and both emergency protective orders were officially extended all the way through August 24th.
But for the remainder of those 44 days, there is just silence on the public record.
What we do know as a hard, documented fact is that Owasso Police stated they received no reports alleging any violations of the protective order during this entire stretch of time.
12 days before her death on July 11th, Sara posted a video. She used a then-current TikTok trend format that basically described what a documentary of her life would look like. In it, she stated hers would be about discovering her soon-to-be ex-husband was a pedophile, and she added the caption, "I wish I was joking." Now, it's vital we understand this post is simply a documented interval on the timeline. It is absolutely not established as a cause for what happened, and in no way did she invite or cause this tragedy.
Section 4, July 23, 2026.
Which brings us to the sober, documented events of the night of July 23, 2026. At approximately 11:15 p.m., a 911 call was placed. According to the dispatch log, and we're just looking at the words on the log here, the dispatcher heard screaming, which was then followed by a sound consistent with a gunshot. During this terrifying moment, Sara's son ran to a neighbor's home.
About 3 minutes later, at roughly 11:18 p.m., officers arrived at the residence. They found both Sara Gilson and Jeremiah Duffey dead inside the home. Owasso Police say she was shot and killed by her estranged husband, who then died by suicide. And every single time this is discussed, it must be attributed correctly. Owasso Police say the deaths were a murder-suicide.
Section 5, what the record shows.
Before we wrap up, let's take a step back and look at exactly what the public record does and does not establish. There are some significant gaps here, and we cannot and will not fill them with speculation. The police have stated no motive. We have no established causation. We don't know what actions federal prosecutors took during those 44 days. We don't know whether the firearms surrender order was ever complied with, enforced, or even checked by authorities. We have no public medical examiner findings, and the truth of the molestation allegation itself was never tested in a court of law.
To be absolutely clear about these unestablished facts, we don't know. Because it is so vitally important that we don't guess or try to fill in the blanks, I will say it again. We don't know.
The legal posture of this case is currently status L4. Both principals are deceased. As we noted, Jeremiah Duffey is dead and was never charged over the 2026 allegation. He cannot answer these allegations, and he never will. No one will ever be tried, and nothing in this case was ever adjudicated.
If you or someone you know needs help, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or text START to 88788. Every case file we publish is sourced, dated, and corrected in public. This one, with its documents and its unanswered questions, is at cassiancreed.com/Gilson. If you know something we got wrong, that page tells you how to reach us. This has been Cassian Creed.